What if a hidden fault beneath the Atlantic could unleash disaster across two continents? Scientists now warn the Puerto Rico Trench may be ready to trigger one of the deadliest tsunamis in history. This is no distant doomsday theory. The Puerto Rico Trench plunges nearly 8,400 m deep where the North American plate collides with the Caribbean plate in a locked embrace of unimaginable force. Energy builds in silence decade after decade, waiting for release. When it comes, it will not whisper. It will roar. Scientists estimate that a rupture here could generate a quake in the magnitude 8.5 to 8.88 range, releasing energy equal to hundreds of nuclear bombs. Within minutes, walls of water could race toward Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, the Virgin Islands, and even the U.S. East Coast. Could cities like Miami, New York, and Boston truly be vulnerable to an event born in a place so few even know exists? The warnings are clear. The only uncertainty is when. And if the Atlantic's deadliest fault ruptures tomorrow, the question is simple. Are we ready or are we sleepwalking toward catastrophe? Puerto Rico Trench Danger. Chapter 1. Puerto Rico Trench Danger. Beneath the tranquil surface of the Atlantic, the Puerto Rico Trench hides like a sleeping beast. At nearly 28,000 feet deep, 8,400 m, it is deeper than Mount Everest is tall. This trench marks the boundary where the North American plate dives beneath the Caribbean plate. A classic subduction zone, the most dangerous type of tectonic boundary on Earth. Why is it so dangerous? Because of its geometry and smoothness. Faults with jagged, irregular edges often release stress in smaller, frequent earthquakes. But in the Puerto Rico Trench, the interface between plates is relatively smooth, allowing stress to lock in place for centuries. When it finally ruptures, the release is not gradual. It is explosive. Scientists call these zones mega-thrust faults capable of producing earthquakes in the magnitude 8.5 to 8.8 range. Research from the USGS and NOAA shows that the trench has a history of generating both powerful earthquakes and tsunamis. The most notable in modern times was the 1918 San Fermin earthquake, a magnitude 7.3 event off Puerto Rico's northwest coast. It triggered a tsunami that killed over 100 people and caused widespread damage. But that quake was far smaller than what this trench is capable of. What alarms seismologists today are the microseismic signals recorded in recent years. Networks of seafloor seismographs have detected swarms of tiny quakes along segments of the trench, suggesting that stress is accumulating unevenly. Some sections remain ominously quiet. The very places most likely to unleash catastrophic rupture. Could centuries of silence really be hiding the setup for one violent release? And if so, would the Caribbean and U.S. East Coast have the time or the systems in place to survive the Atlantic's deadliest quake? Chapter 2. Atlantic Megaquake Risk. Atlantic Mega-Quake Risk. Imagine the ground lurching as an entire slab of the Earth's crust shifts by tens of feet in mere seconds. That is the kind of motion scientists expect from a megaquake along the Puerto Rico Trench. This isn't speculation. It is the result of decades of geophysical modeling and comparisons to other deadly subduction zones. A rupture here could release a quake between magnitude 8.5 and 8.8, several times more powerful than the strongest quakes recorded in the eastern United States. To put this in perspective, a magnitude 8.8 event releases about 30 times more energy than a 7.88 quake, enough to equal hundreds of nuclear detonations. The shaking would devastate infrastructure across Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and Hispaniola, buckling highways, toppling buildings, and cutting power to millions within seconds. But what makes this scenario even more terrifying is what happens next. Subduction zone earthquakes are the world's most efficient tsunami generators. When the seafloor suddenly uplifts or drops, it displaces billions of tons of water almost instantly. Modeling studies from NOAA's Pacific Marine Environmental Lab show that a rupture along the trench could send tsunami waves of 20 to 30 foot toward Puerto Rico's northern coast within minutes. And the danger doesn't stop there. Tsunami waves travel at up to 500 miles per hour, fast enough to cross the Atlantic basin in hours. That means waves from a Puerto Rico trench megaquake could reach the U.S. East Coast in under 3 to 4 hours, hitting Miami, Charleston, or even New York with destructive force. European nations bordering the Atlantic, including Spain and Portugal, could also see elevated waves in the aftermath. So the chilling question is this. Could one hidden rupture beneath the Atlantic unleash not just a regional disaster, but a trans-oceanic catastrophe felt on 2 continents? If this warning shocks you, hit subscribe and ring the bell because the next about Earth's hidden dangers may leave you even more unsettled. Chapter 3. Caribbean Tsunami Threat. Caribbean Tsunami Threat. History already proves that the Puerto Rico Trench is not a quiet neighbor. In 1918, a magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck off Puerto Rico's northwest coast near the Mona Passage. The quake alone was destructive, but the real killer was the tsunami it unleashed. Waves up to 20 feet slammed into coastal towns like Aguadilla, Mayagu, and Isabela, killing 116 people and injuring hundreds more. That was over a century ago, with far fewer people living along Puerto Rico's coasts. What would the same event mean in 2025 when millions live in low-lying coastal zones? And the 1918 tsunami was far from the first. Geological surveys have uncovered evidence of ancient tsunami deposits buried in coastal sediments. Sand layers pushed far inland mixed with coral fragments and shells. These layers prove that massive waves have reshaped Caribbean coastlines repeatedly over the last 5,000 years. In other words, history is written in the soil. Even if most people alive today have forgotten. Modern modeling paints a grim picture. A magnitude 8.5 rupture in the trench could generate waves 20 to 30 feet high along Puerto Rico's north shore in under 10 minutes. The Dominican Republic and Virgin Islands would be struck within the same window. That means almost no time to evacuate. People would have only minutes, not hours, to reach higher ground. And it doesn't stop at the Caribbean. With tsunami waves traveling at jetliner speeds, the U.S. East Coast could be hit in 3 to 4 hours. Think about it. Would Miami, Charleston, or New York be ready to evacuate millions of people in that short window? The haunting truth is this. While hurricanes give days of warning, a megaquake tsunami offers none. Could the Caribbean face its deadliest natural disaster not in decades but in minutes? Please like and subscribe channel.